Saturday afternoon, taking a break from working outside, having a beer. As we always say, it takes really good beer to make great wine. This one's terrific. And all of you are worthy for listening to this and reading the book. This is chapter 33, Shoveling It. Paul called the recycling center to order a truck full of compost dumped through the back gate near the top of the hill. It's a miracle the truck didn't tip over as it lifted its bed high in the sky, and an avalanche of compost slid onto Paul's dirt road, the same road the zoning officer asked him to fill in. Paul marched to the top of the pile and announced, "I'm king of the hill," remembering a game they played as kids. Like a glacier oozing down a mountain, half the pile slid down his dirt road, while the other half extended out the gate onto the public paved road. Paul's concern about a fine from the coastal commissariat was less than the wrath of Sheila, who would have a cow if she saw the pile on the road. She couldn't relax if anything was untidy, even a pile of dirt. There was only one thing to do: grab a shovel and move it before she saw it. How am I going to move 30 yards of compost? The same way an ant eats an elephant, one bite at a time. I'm not an army of ants. Shut up and start shoveling. He opened the door to the renovated shed, rechristened Chateau Bluey, and pulled out a shovel. He spent all his money on women and wine, while Sheila spent all her money on palm trees and rebuilding a dilapidated structure of rotted planks. Miguel would have rebuilt it for $2,000, but she spent over $5,000 to hire someone else. Anyone but Miguel. Paul shoveled one scoop at a time, moving a bit of dirt with each bite, while Bluey paddled the top layer of compost to cover a fresh poop. At least I'm getting exercise, thought Paul, as he pushed compost down the slope, creating a steep precipice from the top of the pile to the bottom. He dug himself into a hole, then triggered an avalanche of dried leaves, smoky wood, rotted grass clippings, dried food scraps, and whatever else ends up in a city's green rubbish that covered him. Bluey shifted into St. Bernard mode and dug, licking Paul's face clean of fermenting compost. As he emerged from his shallow grave, Paul saw small puffs of smoke rising and twirling from the pile, a miniature version of scenic Chinese peaks and clouds he had witnessed with Christine. If you have no sense of smell, does a pile of rotting compost stink? "What's in this compost, boy?" he asked Bluey, as if the sommelier would tell him the varietals of post-mortal compostables. "It sure feels hot." Paul, who hadn't seen this much dung since his trip to India, was up to his waist in it. "Hope it's not too rich for the vines. Wonder if I have to let it sit a couple of months before putting it around the trunks." The dusty dirt particles and acrid smoke that filled, clogged, and backed up his nozzles triggered a sneeze, a Gesundheit, a kachoo of such force, a Methuselah-sized cannonball of snot fired from his nasal artillery grew to the size of a snowball as it accelerated down the compost pile, grabbing sticks, leaves, and wood chips. Never before was such an obese booger born from a vintner's nose. Intrigued by the sticky orb he had birthed, Paul examined it carefully, slicing the snot ball in half for a pathological exam, cataloging layers of dirt, each deposited during different stages of his life. Paul inspected the darkest matter at the center of the booger ball. "My God, dirt from Delhi! No wonder I lost my sense of smell in India." And after that realization came the inevitable second one, as his nostrils cleared and his sense of smell returned. "Bluey, we're standing in a pile of shit." He pulled out his phone and called, "Hola, amigo. Can you send over a couple of guys?" Paul was friendly with Miguel when he needed help. "The guys who can help you today, they don't have no car. If you give me some extra money for gas, I can bring them to you." "How much extra?" $30. Bring them over." While he waited for the cavalry, he entered the shed and pulled from the wall Sheila's pitchfork, never before used, with shiny, sharp silver tips. "I don't know what she's going to do with a decorative pitchfork, but now it's time to use it. The hell with what she says," he thought, as if she were rushing him. He used the pitchfork to lift a load of compost towards a wheelbarrow, with part of it reaching the barrel, part falling back on the pile, part falling into his shoes, permeating his socks and between his toes, with some fine particles floating into his clenched nostrils, down his trachea and into his lungs. Coughing didn't dislodge. The pitchfork worked better than the shovel. Who rebuilt your shed? Miguel asked. Ask Sheila. She did it while I was out of town. I could have saved you a lot of money. How much did it cost? Ask her. Miguel instructed the guys, and each took a shovel, and with the three of them working, they had soon bitten off the elephant's leg, while Miguel bit into Tangelos he pulled from the tree. Hey, Paul, called Miguel, Paul cringing when he heard his name called by the pirate. Don't you have a bigger shovels? How are these guys supposed to shovel without the right tools? The guys are fine, and they're making good progress. Paul noticed Rodrigo shoveled as much as two guys. Those shovels are no good. They're not happy. They're not happy because you take too much of their money and eat oranges in the shade while they work. You want me to go over to Joe's to get some big shovels? He has the good ones. Why don't you have the right tools? You really need to have the right tools. Do you want me to go buy you some? Just keep shoveling the dirt and stop shoveling shit. Miguel always found an excuse to leave a work site to go to Joe's, Carrie Ann's, or Grangetto's to pick up something. He took half an hour to drive, half an hour at the store, and on the way back, he'd stop at the taqueria to chat with the pretty senorita and order that good taco with cerveza. So by the time he returned, 2 hours had passed, and he charged a full day's work and complained he wasn't paid enough. Hey, Paul, Miguel called. You got a gopher over there, pointing to a raised mound of freshly ground dirt by the tangelo trees. You want me to catch him for you? Do I have a choice? Pay me $20. I thought the deal was $10. The economy's better now. Make yourself useful while we shovel, but don't charge me for the gopher you trapped at Joe's. Miguel strode into the shed and pulled out a shovel, trowel, and trap. When Bluey heard the clinking chain attached to the trap, he barked in anticipation of fishing. Hey, Paul! This shovel's no good. It's too big. You gotta have a narrow shovel to dig a hole to catch a gopher. Why don't you have the right tools? I'm going over to Joe's for a trench shovel. You're going over there for a beer. Just use what's here. Rodrigo grumbled. Why is he always trying to lead? He always chooses the easy jobs for himself and gives us the hard work, said Pedro. Why do we have to give him $20 from our pay when we do all the work? Asked Rodrigo, echoing words from his wife. Miguel surveyed the ground, probed for the tunnel by slicing through the earth here, dissecting there, until he found it. He divided the tunnel, shoveling away the dirt, leaving two openings, each facing each other 2 feet apart. He got on his knees and worked with a trowel to widen and smooth each entrance, and then inserted a trap. Hey, Paul, you only got the one trap. How am I supposed to catch the fucking gopher with one trap? You gotta have 2 traps. I'm going to Joe's to get another trap. I have 2 more traps down at the house. I'll get them for you. Stay here. Paul and Bluey marched to the house and returned with a bucket of traps. Hello, Monsieur Dog, Miguel greeted him. Nice dog. He had been on the wrong end of dog attacks. Miguel set the second trap, and there was one at each tunnel entrance. Bluey lay on his belly by the holes and waited, keeping an eye on one hole and the other on Miguel. They had made good progress shoveling the plow, because that's how you eat an elephant. Cut weeds in a vineyard, climb Mount Everest, and march 10,000 miles, one step at a time. They took turns wheeling the barrow from the top of the hill to the bottom, dragging the metal stand as a brake, because if you don't brake, gravity pulled you, and your feet moved faster and faster, and the weight of the barrow pulled you harder and became a runaway truck accelerating downhill without brakes, and the only way to stop was to veer off the highway into a patch of sand. So deep the truck's wheels slowed, and you smashed into an incline, or you let go, and the barrel barrels down the hill into your propane tank, then explodes, blowing out the windows of your home and blowing up the blood pressure of the vineyard Easter, who says, "You're killing me. My blood pressure is so high." And the fire department scrambles to douse the flames before a towering inferno consumes the nation's 9th largest city. So they use the wheelbarrow stand as a brake, except Rodrigo, whose core was so strong, he slowly stepped down the hill in total control and spread the compost at the feet of vines that clung to rocks with little soil. Paul saw Bluey trotting towards him, dragging a chain. "Drop it!" he commanded. "Drop it!" From the canine's mouth fell a gopher whose heart still beat and gasped for air, his lungs punctured by the trap's spears. Good boy. The dog had tasted gopher blood, and it was good, and it was the last time he would willingly release a gopher, alive or dead, from his jaws. Paul buried the body, but the dog was patient, and a few days later Paul saw Bluey chewing gopher jerky and shouted, "Leave it!" Bluey disobeyed and swallowed all that was left in one swift scarf as Paul grabbed his jaws but couldn't pry them open. What does that do to a dog's stomach? Paul paid Miguel the workers' wages, the gas money, and the gopher bounty. No double dipping with this one, eh? Eh, amigo? Paul closed the gate behind them. All the compost had been moved inside and spread throughout the vineyard. Bluey and Paul walked down the mountain to the house carrying an unseen hitchhiker, who, after Paul removed his shoes on the terrace, disembarked and slowly crawled to the bottom row of vines, buried himself behind the bark of the largest, emerged in spring, inched up the trunk, and was greeted by a band of ants waiting for him with fruit. Paul used organic mulch instead of commercial fertilizer to gently return nitrogen and nutrients to a sustainable vineyard. Worse than introducing mealybugs was the wrath of Sheila, who constantly reminded him, "I told you not to use compost," almost daily, as she searched for the spidery white crawly bugs with as much diligence as she hunted nits of lice in Kate's hair as a child. Paul never ratted on Carrie Ann, who originally transmitted the vineyard clock to him, as he would remind her, without benefits. Now that Paul could taste, the choice of which bottle to try first was easy. He searched for Petit Verdot that cast spells over those who drank it, from the First Lady to the Saint Sommelier. He poured a sample, brought it to his nose, closed his eyes, inhaled, and his brain was hit with a fragrance he liked but didn't have the vocabulary to describe. He sipped, enjoyed, became curious and curiouser about the flavors, aromas, and bouquet he experienced, and sent a text to Jane, asking if she would assist with his sensibilitation.